maybe some people haven't been to the Dharma Arts before. So, just as a brief intro, this started about 13 years ago in the temple when Reverend Jung Soo Jo was here. And it came to be as a way of sharing with the community, with the Sangha, those moments where there's the intersection between art and Dharma. You know, I'm of the persuasion that when you're fully awakened, when your eyes are open, you can see beauty. Things awaken, and there's a kind of freshness and clarity and beauty and wonder. And I believe that's what art does. It's a sacred kind of tradition. It's become secularized, but actually there's a sacred tradition of the arts being like a way of being present, fully present, in a way that leads to a kind of joy and well-being, perhaps healing. A lot of people are using the arts now in healing, because it touches spirit, and it's a sacred thing. So we've thought, as members of the Sangha, that we share that with one another. Those times when we're touched and moved, and we can share that with one another because it brings a certain sense of well-being. So that's how it came into being. It's kind of funny, on the way over here I was driving, and everybody knows the country western tune by Janis Joplin. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Willie McGee, me and Bobby McGee, everyone know that too? Sorry, you can break the silence here, and maybe laugh a little bit, and nod some nodding heads, good. Well, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. So, in that moment, there's a kind of sense of, I don't know, joy, epiphany, whatever you want to call it. So we come to share that together here amongst one another. And so the first person up today is going to be Elizabeth Holt. And there's going to be a few other people. It may be relatively short, but I was thinking to myself, if you really see something of beauty, it's like William Blake said, in a speck of sand, there's both the eternity, there's a kind of cleansing of the doors of perception. You can see eternity in a grain of sand. So we may not have a lot of those grains of sand here today, but I hope everyone can be present for it. And I thought to do that, just take a moment and think of the Ilwan Song vow. Ilwan is the realm of samadhi, beyond all words and speech. It's the gateway of birth and death, transcending being and non-being. It's the origin of heaven and earth, parents, fellow beings, and laws. It's the original nature of all Buddhas, enlightened masters, ordinary people, and sentient beings. Beyond all distinction. So if we can hang out there for a little bit, that's the realm of the Dharma Arts. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce or bring up Elizabeth Holt.
I welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to be in this beautiful temple. I'm going to play two pieces today. The first one is by a UK composer, James Spiteri. He is a pianist and composer, travels around Europe. His music is very meditative, very contemplative. The piece I'm playing that he wrote is called Traveling, and it makes me think of this journey that we are all on together. So just let those sounds wash over you as you float through your journey today. The second piece is by the American composer Edward MacDowell. He lived from 1860 to 1908, just to put that in perspective. The piece he wrote is called Sea Piece, S-E-A, sea as in the ocean. The ocean is immense, deep, huge. And just like our minds, The ocean can sometimes look very calm and peaceful and beautiful and inviting. And in a blink of an eye, in a fraction of a second, it can suddenly be all churned up. Waves, lightning, storms, very threatening, very ugly. But just like our minds, underneath, no matter what storm is going on the surface, the ocean is calm underneath in the depths. Just like we have our original Buddha mind, no matter what sensory conditions we're struggling with, no matter how disturbed we feel, always remember we have our Buddha nature there to sustain us. So anyway, enjoy this music and just let it wash over you like the ocean waves.
especially in Japan, there came to light various forms of expression in the arts, calligraphy. Another one that came prominent was haiku, which is a certain type of poetry, like moment-to-moment moments being displayed in words, became really, during, I think it was the Edo period in Japan, very, very prominent. There was a whole school. Basho, of course, is was well recognized amongst the people there. But so Kathleen's been trying her hand at it, Kathleen Geist, and she's going to share some haiku with us that has come out of her experience. So let's welcome Kathleen Geist.
Like I said, I don't usually write poetry, but haiku started to write itself while I was on retreat in May. I've got 3 to share with you. The first one was actually written by a group, and I was with a group of women standing on the wooden walkway looking out over the field below us, and there was a vulture circling in the air. And I suggested 2 lines, and the women corrected a couple of the verbs, and we said it again, and we thought it was good. Then I said the 3rd line, and I said, it's done. Vulture.
Use the microphone.
A floating black kite soars effortlessly on air, searching for the dead. Second one was written as we were doing a nature hike, up and down steep hills, and little butterflies were flying in the grass visiting the clover. Here's the haiku. Flitting to check each bloom, the butterflies don't notice that the path is steep. The 2 mornings we had garlic weeding meditation, and the instructions were given by the Venerable Cunningham, headmaster of Juan Buddhism USA, and his instructions became a haiku. Take care pulling weeds among the precious garlic. The bulbs are tender.
Can I get the first one again?
Sure. Vulture. A floating black kite soars effortlessly on air, searching for the dead.
Thank you. So the next person we're going to have is Kevin. Kevin wanted to present some poetry. So Kevin McCafferty, a well-known figure here, stepping to the podium as we speak.
So, my father was an interesting man. He spent 21 years as a Master Sergeant Marine. He fought in Vietnam and Korea. And an interesting thing my mom once told me, it got me thinking about this because as she gets close to death. When he was at war, he would write a letter every day to my mom. And I had 7 older brothers and sisters, and he would write a letter to each of them, a different one each day too as well. So that was pretty amazing. But he was a pretty tough guy. I was born soon after he came back to Vietnam, ironically. There's one time I saw him cry, and that was at his sister's funeral. And interestingly enough, that night he died of a heart attack. So I kind of always looked at how he kind of died of a broken heart. So I wrote this, I found this in the back of my closet. I wrote this, I read it at my dad's funeral. Whenever I went to my father for advice, a confession, or a sports page, I'd always find him sitting in his favorite chair. Well, that chair has become a symbol of my father to me, so I wrote this poem about my dad. There, draped in solitude and spider webs, a little faded corner of carpet. A dusty square where a gray chair used to be. It was an old piece of furniture, stubbornly held together by a few rusty screws and a lot of memories. Its legs, strong once, complained with every vibration of the floor, and its springs couldn't support the weight of children's laughter anymore. It had a few holes, a few blemishes on its cloth skin from tough and tattered years. I can still smell it from here, as a fragrance in my memory appears, and I remember. I remember days I'd sit securely in its warmth. I remember nights I'd fall asleep in its powerful arms, safe from the monsters that roam the roads of a child's nightmares. But as the years passed, that chair became less of a comfortable escape, and more like an old pillow that was always there, but too often forgotten. Now I look back and realize that I'll never feel quite as safe as I did in that chair. And now it's gone. And it may seem silly, but I wish I could have sat in it one more time, just to let it know. Just to let it know. Thank you.
I don't know, is there anybody else who would like to jump up and do something spontaneously? That's appropriate. Okay, so much for that. So I believe I have a couple of haikus here to share. And if you haven't already noticed, I kind of don't want to be so formal. People are sitting here and it looks like really kind of like, so I think there's some humor and lightness to being able to be in dharmic mode. So this is something that came up for me. Sitting in meditation, I became impatient with my enlightenment. So sitting in meditation, I became impatient with my enlightenment. And this one also came up while I was in my space meditating. There was my place in my house is like built on the side of a hill, so that you can actually the ground levels with where my basement is, and there's a window out into like a wooded area, and every once in a while deer come across, you know, as I'm sitting there, and it's really quite kind of charming and delightful in a way to me. So this one came. She keeps watch. Silently, I sit in the basement. She keeps watch. Silently, I sit in the basement. So I'd like to just share a couple of other poems, and I guess that will bring us to a close, this part of the program. So I have two poems here. One's one of my favorite from Wendell Berry, 80-some-year-old past poet laureate of America, United States, a very well-known ecologist, naturalist, extraordinary. I mean, if you don't know his writing, I strongly recommend you checking out Wendell Berry. So this is his piece of Wild Things, which I always keep close to me. When despair for the world grows in me, and I awaken in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and I lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And finally, this is one of my favorite from Rumi. Is everyone here familiar with Rumi? Anyone here not familiar with Rumi? I see nodding heads. So everyone knows who Rumi is. So this is one of my favorites, and we'll bring it to a conclusion there. It's buoyancy. Buoyancy. I saw you and became empty. This emptiness is more beautiful than existence. It obliterates existence. And yet when it comes, existence thrives and creates more existence. To praise is to praise how one surrenders to the emptiness. To praise the sun is to praise your own eyes. Praise the ocean. What we say is just a little ship. So the sea journey goes on, and who knows where. But just to be held by the ocean is the best luck we could have. It's a total waking up. It's a total waking up. Why should we grieve that we've been sleeping? It doesn't matter how long we've been unconscious. Yeah, we're groggy, but let go of the guilt. Feel the motions of tenderness around you. Feel the motions of tenderness around you, the buoyancy.
Could you say something about Rumi?
Oh, sure. Rumi was a contemporary of Hafez. There was in Turkey, in Sufic tradition, there's a whole ecstatic kind of music. The music and movement of the Sufis is very well known. It's very ecstatic. And these poets came out of that period of time. I think it's like the 1400s, 1500s maybe. And they wrote these, they became like poets, ecstatic poets. Rumi, it has been translated many times by many people. Coleman Barks has become one of his more I guess, popular translators. So Rumi always, I mean, if you read him, I mean, it's really worth, delving into some delightful material there. He always refers to his mentor as being Shams, this guy who was his mentor and inspired him. And one day Shams just left. And it was like, just left him. And so Rumi had talked about like how he'd gotten his inspiration from this mentor teacher, and then spent the rest of his life writing poetry and other forms. There's a lot in his catalog, but Coleman Barks it's a really good place to start. The Essential Rumi, if you could find that, that's really a nice place to start. Does anybody else have any other questions or thing they'd like to say before we move on?